Today's scripture comes from Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 through 10. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. Be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way, obey the law of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you're only fooling yourself. You are not that important. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. For we are each responsible for our own conduct. Those who are taught the word of God should provide for their teachers, sharing all good things with them. Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith.
How's everyone doing? Good. Did everyone get a donut? Which one did you choose? Does anyone know what a donut is? Okay. So what donut did you choose? Chocolate. Glazed. Strawberry. I didn't know we had strawberry. I will now go get a strawberry donut. Do you want to try the maple bacon? Well, if you didn't, you picked the wrong choice. That is by far the best donut out there. And I'm a Boston cream fan. There are Boston creams out there. I will probably have one of those. But the maple bacon is amazing. Now, again, into this series, in my opinion, we all have different opinions. Like for you guys, some of you guys got just a plain glazed donut. Who got a plain glazed donut? Okay? I'm not saying you're boring, okay? That is in your opinion, that's your favorite donut. Now, for me, again, how many of you guys don't like Boston creams? Okay? In my opinion, you are wrong, because that is my favorite donut. But it's okay. We can have a discussion. But it's the way we say that. And today we're going to be talking about this idea. When we talk, use kindness and love when you speak up. Use kindness and love when you speak up. And if you guys, we sent out handouts. If you want to print them, you can get your parents to do that. If not, if this is your first time being here, a brand new fifth grader, hello, welcome. I'm the 7th and 8th grade pastor, Chris Burch. We're so glad you guys are here. But we encourage you guys, pull out your phones to take notes, take pictures, whatever you guys need. Bring a journal, bring a Bible, because we're not going to be able to do handouts for a little while. So we encourage you guys to do that, because memorizing whole messages is tough enough. By Wednesday, I'll probably forget everything I've said except for my favorite donut. So again, going back into this idea, our bottom line for today is use kindness and love when you speak up. So if you were to tell me, hey, Chris, my favorite donut is a plain, normal glazed donut. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. That's good for you. And it's not mine. But if I was like, you're wrong. How could you ever like that? What is wrong with you? Do you think that's appropriate response? No, absolutely not. But the crazy thing is, if we look in our world right now, especially with simple things like masks, here's a simple one, people are doing that. People are kind of going crazy right now about simple little things. So again, use kindness and love when you speak up, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Have you ever spoken up about something and it ended up being totally awkward, hurtful, or embarrassing? Has anyone ever had that? I'm not going to ask you to tell the story, but I'll tell you mine. Have you ever spoken up about something and it ended up being totally awkward, hurtful, or embarrassing? For me, I was in middle school. Me and my father were building a grill, and it was one of those dads, moms in the room, you understand, where you're like, oh, the picture of the box, it's an easy grill. Then you open up the box, and it's like 55 pieces, and you got to build it from the ground up. You need a degree. It was tough. So we started building it. We get halfway through, the legs are done. Now we're putting the top piece on. A very important piece. It's the one that opens up and closes. And if you put the pieces on the wrong side, it won't open. halfway through, I'm like, hey, Dad, I think we're doing this backwards. And he's like, no, I think we're doing it fine. I was like, okay. So we put it together, listen to your father, all that jazz. So we get done, and then we try to open the grill. And guess what? Huh? No, it doesn't open because we bolted it shut and put it on backwards. Now, like a good son, I looked at him and I was like, Dad, I told you halfway through that this is what we're doing. And he was like, huh. So we had to redo it. We had to redo that. Do you think that was the appropriate tone? Do you think my dad got angry? Some of you say, was that appropriate tone? Yeah? That's how I should have done it. Okay, let me tell you how I actually did it. And being a 7th and 8th grader, because that would have been the right response, right? Everything would have moved real smooth. Let my father know he was wrong. I was right as a middle schooler, right, kids? Feels great. Parents, doesn't feel good. Here's how it really happened. Halfway through, we got the legs finally. We're sweating. It's hot outside. That doesn't mean anything. It just helps you understand the situation going on. So we get to the point we are now putting on there. I'm reading the instructions because I love Legos. I understand how to do this. I'm like, Dad, we're putting this on backwards. And he's like, no, I don't think we are. I'm like, no, I'm 100% right. You are wrong. You are putting this on backwards. You're doing it wrong. And he's like, no, I think I'm doing it right. I'm like, okay, all right. So we finally get there, doesn't open, and guess who just lets him have it? Me, because I was right. I was like, Dad, you're dumb. I told you I was right. Now we got to redo this. We got to redo the whole situation. It's your fault. Look what you've done. Now, how do you think the situation went after that? Yes, I got grounded for being right. Why? I was right, though. I was truly 100% right. Why did I get in trouble? Use kindness and love when you speak up. Use kindness and love when you speak up. Because the way you talk, even though you're right, just because of the way you say things, it doesn't make you win. And I know for me, sometimes I love sports, and I know you guys probably love sports too, and you see refs and coaches arguing. Have you ever seen a ref turn around and be like, after just being cussed out and yelled at, turn around and be like, hey, you know what? You're totally right. I'm just going to reverse this call now. I'm so sorry. Never. Use kindness and love when you speak up. So sometimes when we share our opinion, it can cause awkwardness, embarrassment, or even hurt. And it kind of makes us think of this idea that comes up to our head, hey, should I even speak up sometimes? Like, should I even speak? Now, of course, you should. But for some of us, we'll have a bad example. Sometimes we'll say things and we mean it nice, and we don't even mean it mean. Like I was trying to be mean to my dad because he was wrong. I was 100% right, and he was 100% wrong. But sometimes we even say things not in a mean way or a mean tone, and it just hurts someone's feelings. For me, I know this about myself. I'm a very competitive person. I like to play games, and I like to win, and I like to have fun. Sometimes when I'm playing with a new person and they don't know that's what I do, so I'm just talking a lot and just having fun, it can hurt someone's feelings. And I'm not meaning to, truthfully honest, I'm just being playful, but it hurts somebody's feelings sometimes. So it comes this idea, you know what? Should I even speak up? Should I even talk? Now, for a lot of us, what would you say the place where you can share your opinion most of the time? Who do you tell your opinion with or share your opinion with most of the time? Who is it? God? That's a good one. Did not even have that in my notes. I'll put that down. That's good. All right, number 2. Your dad? Another good one. Your mom? Ryan, did you say friends? Oh, okay, that's the right answer. That's what I was going for. Most of the time, when we feel like we can really share our opinion and there's not really a lot of judgment, we go to our friends. Those are really good answers. I would always keep God number 1 and your parents number 2. Great kids, great kids. Most of the time, I'll be truthfully honest, I would go to my friend because I'm like, My mom's dumb. My dad's dumb. Maybe I'm not sure who God is at this point in my life. I'm not saying that my parents are awesome. I'm just saying, like, you usually wouldn't go to your parents because sometimes you think you're right and they're wrong, so you want to share it with your friends. And of course, another middle schooler, another fifth grader at this point is like, hey, you're right. You're the smartest person in the world, right? Fifth graders, smartest people in the world? Good, you're humble. Oh, nope, you got it. But you think this idea and you're like, can I really share my opinions with my friends? The place a lot of us run into the fear of sharing our opinions is actually with our friends. Now, a lot of you are like, no, what? I tell my friends everything. But do you have the hard conversations with them? Do you have true, hard conversations with your friends? It's easy to run to a stranger and tell them they're wrong, but someone you care about, someone you love, that can be tough. I'm getting this message ready, and I was like, hey, you know what? This is really about me. I hate having hard conversations. I don't like it. It's tough for me. I feel like if I say something that's really truthful, because sometimes it is, it will hurt them. It will make them be really upset with me, because sometimes sharing the truth with someone, it hurts. And it's true. If you guys ever get a cut or a really bad cut, you're supposed to put alcohol on there. Like alcohol wipes. Has everyone done that? Or peroxide? You put that on there, what happens? It burns. It burns so bad. But guess what? It means it's working. And just like the truth sometimes, when we know we're doing something wrong, and then a friend comes up and is like, hey, I need to share something with you. It burns, it hurts, but I'm afraid of that. Like for me, it's have these hard conversations. It's tough sometimes to have them. So maybe you guys, you see your friend doing something they're not supposed to do. Do you have that hard conversation with them? Do you tell them what they're doing is wrong? When you know, for me, I had a cousin who would just backtalk his parents constantly, and then he would get spanked. And I would just sit there. I'm like, what is wrong with him? Why is he doing this over and over? Instead of having a conversation, sometimes I laughed, not at him, but behind his back. Or other time, like I should have been like, hey man, you know, I don't argue with my parents as much as you do, and I don't get spanked as much as you do. Like have that hard conversation. Or if I saw a friend cheating on a test, be like, hey, later down the road, this could hurt you real bad. In college, you'll get kicked out. Or my friend, I know I had a friend, watching movies they're not supposed to watch, R-rated. I watched my first R-rated movie without my parents there. A friend was like, hey, you want to watch The Matrix? I was like, is that rated R? Yes, I do. I was in middle school, and I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies. So having that tough conversation. For us, sometimes you feel like you should speak up, but you aren't sure what to say, how to say it, or even if you should say anything at all. You have all these thoughts like, yeah, someone is doing something bad. It's also my best friend. What should I do? What should I say? I don't know what to do. And for some of us right now, maybe you can't think of a situation, so I want to give you guys like a little jump start, a little brain tease here. If you guys have your phones, can you pull them out for me? If you don't, you can raise your hand, lower your hand. But for your phone, if you guys can pull out your phones, parents, you can do this too. And then turn your light on. Technology. Thank you. And so if I ask a question that goes with you, there you go. So I can't really see your faces, so you don't really have to worry about other people seeing your face. I'm going to use mine to read my notes. But you don't have to worry about other people seeing you. Just raise it up, okay? So like if I'm like, hey, you like donuts? Raise your hand if you like donuts. There you go. So some of you keep them down. There's no judgment here. We're just having a conversation to help get your brain going. All right. Raise your light or hand if you convince yourself not to speak up because you felt like your friend was what he was doing was no big deal. All right. Okay. Put your hands down. Thank you. Show me your light or hand if you didn't speak up because you told yourself, I don't want to ruin the friendship or make my friend mad. Been there. Raise your light if you didn't speak up to a friend because you thought, what can I even say? I've done the same thing. What grounds do I have to speak on? Done this one too. Hold your light up. If you avoided speaking up to a friend because you felt it was none of your business, it had nothing to do with you, so if it didn't affect you, what could you say about it? All right. Raise your light if you convince yourself not to speak to a friend because you thought, hey, I don't think they'll listen to me anyway, so why should I even talk to them? Show me your light if you didn't speak up honestly to a friend because you know you're not supposed to gossip, and talking to them about the issue, you felt like it was gossiping. And finally, hold your light if you avoid speaking up to a friend because you thought, I've already told them what I think, do I really need to tell them again and again? All right, thank you guys for that. Now, so our brains are thinking about these things like, okay, you know what? I have been in those situations. I have been in there. So what do I do? When it comes to speaking up in a situation, what do I do? So now we do. We've seen something is wrong. What do we do? So there's two types of people. Now, I respect, you need both of these people. I've learned from these people, and some people have learned from me. But you have the people that are really kind of like, I don't know how to talk to this person. I'm going to try to avoid it, but I still need to have this conversation. That's me. And the other people we have is like Kevin Nunnery, the high school pastor. And I love Kevin Nunnery, but he is not afraid to have a conversation with anybody. Now, they both have pros and cons. I'm not going to try to stir up really anything because I don't want that. Kevin Nunnery, on the other hand, because he wants to have a conversation, get it over, he might accidentally hurt someone's feelings because he's saying it. Now, that's two of us. So how many of you guys like to have hard conversations? Okay, smaller room, okay? You can still learn from this because if we're saying things in a really quick, try to get this done in a point type of way, we can hurt someone's feelings. Same way for us, though, everyone else in the room, because you didn't raise your hand. Maybe you don't like conversation. I should have known because you didn't raise your hand. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So you're like, hey, if I don't say anything at all, nothing bad could happen. But you got to realize it's not about you in this point. It's about the person. So if we don't have that conversation with the person, it might hurt them down the path. And that's where Galatians 6, 1 through 10 comes in. And we had Robert read that. I'm going to go through a bit. There's so much. And I encourage you guys, go through, spend the week on this if you need more. If you just want to go through it, talk to your parents about it, really go through this, because it's kind of an eye-opener. It's amazing. Paul wrote this 2,000 years ago because people are having the same issues we're having right now. When do I talk about somebody? Do I care about everybody? Chapter 6, verse 1. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. So the first thing Paul's saying, hey, if you see someone doing the wrong thing, you who are godly, which I love that first, you who know Christ, you who belong to Christ, help them out. But also he reminds you, be careful though. I know we brought up gossip a little bit, but that's the easy thing. When you're starting to talk about somebody with a friend, it can easily turn into gossiping because you go tell other people about it. Be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Verse 2, share each other's burdens. And in this way, obey the law of Christ. So what does that mean, share others' burdens? Anybody? Take a shot in the dark. Share each other's burdens. Sharing everyone's business, kind of. It's not everyone's business. It's going to be like Cole right there. If Cole is struggling with something, you're helping him out with something. So if he's struggling with something, you're going to do everything you can to kind of like fill what's going on in his life and share it with him. So not be like, hey, Cole, what do you have a problem with? Just kidding. So say, Cole, you have a problem with stealing left socks, okay? Some reason Cole's just stealing left socks. You wouldn't be like, hey, Cole, that's your problem. Deal with it. It's like, hey, how can I come in, walk with Cole, and help him not steal left socks? Does that make sense? That's the only one I could really think of that doesn't really point something out on other people. No one has that problem of stealing left socks, right? Good. Ronald, I'm so sorry. I just brought that in front of everybody. We'll pray about it. Verse 3, verse 3 is hard, okay? This is like the truth part where Paul could do this, but you know he's doing it in a because he just talked about doing it in humility and gentleness, but this part in verse 3 is like, pow! If you think you are too important to help someone else, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important. For me, I'm like, ow, I could never say that to someone. That is so mean. But Paul you can tell from his heart, though. He is trying to help these people, and he just talked about doing it in gentleness and humility. And the way he's saying it wasn't like that. He was just letting them know. If you guys think you're more important than someone else, you're not. And he's talking to Christians, and it's true. We are all equal. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ as long as you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord. But just that fact, because there's some days where you think you are better than someone else. And Paul's just like, hey, you're not. You're not as important as everyone else. We're the same. So help your brothers and sisters out. When we care about someone else, then we want what's best for them. When we truly care about someone else, we want what's best for them. So when we see someone struggling, we should want to help them. Because we know, hey, this probably isn't the best for them. When Paul was writing this letter, he cared about what happened to them. He was caring what was going on. And because of that, he didn't want them to make choices that hurt themselves or others. Because most of the time, if someone is making the wrong decision, eventually, over and over, it's going to lead to them leading other people down that decision, which hurts other people. So when you have this opportunity to have this hard conversation with one person, it might affect other people. It's important that we do what we can to help other people get back on the right path. Now, I'm telling you now, I'm 29 years old. I've lived this. I've done this path already. I wish I could go back to high school, even before, probably middle school, because 8th grade, I started really knowing who Christ was. So you guys right now, 5th grade, if you know who God is, you're in a stronger spiritual place than I was in 5th grade. But even later in high school, I ran from this, and I wish I could change it. There's a lot of friends I have that now have either passed away or they are far from who Christ is. And I had the opportunity in high school to tell them the right path, to help and talk to them, but I was afraid to. I didn't want to have hard conversations because of this one right here. And this one speaks out so much, and I love this point. We have to care about the person more than the relationship. We have to care about the human being, the person, more than the relationship. Put yourself in their shoes. If you were the one walking down this path, and it's going to lead to something else, everyone else saw, hey, this is bad news, something's going to happen. Would you want someone to tell you? One person said yes. Anyone else? Okay, a few, yeah. You can talk in here. Would you want a friend to stop you, help you, point out what they saw had potential to hurt you? You know, you're walking up to this snake, it's rattling. Do you want someone to stop you before you pick it up? Hopefully, right? You're like, no, it's cool, a snake rattles. I don't know what this does. You want someone to be like, hey, stop. That's going to hurt you. Would you want them to have the courage to have a hard conversation with you? Because we know if your friend, is lying every now and then, that could lead to something later on in life. And you have the opportunity to have this conversation with them. Like, hey, a lot of friends notice that you're lying or you're doing other things. Like you have a burner phone because you're not supposed to have Snapchat. You're not supposed to have TikTok. You're not supposed to have Facebook. Some of you guys agreed to this. You're not supposed to be dating at this age because you had these conversations with your parents, but you are. As a friend, shouldn't you encourage them, hey, shouldn't you follow the rules that your parents have set? Maybe your parents know something right now that you'll understand later on. Now, for some of us, we can have these hard conversations. There's like 3 of you. For some of us, it's really hard. How do we do it? It goes back to what Paul said. Gentleness and humility. Gentleness and humility. How would you want someone to have this conversation with you? And humility, simply, if you're putting it in this context, hey, have you guys ever sinned in here? Raise your hand if you have. Okay, so we're all on the same playing field now, okay? We've all sinned. We've all made a mistake. We're all broken vessels. Now, when we're talking to someone else about a sin, just realize, hey, I made a mistake too. I made a mistake. So 2 things I want you guys to think about. The next time you find yourself in a situation where you think you need to speak up, I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions. I got 2 things for you. The first one is, what does it look like to love my friend and show kindness in this situation? What does it look like to love my friend and show kindness in this situation? Maybe it's the way you talk to them. Maybe it's the actual words you use, the tone you have. And Ryan talked about this last week. It was really funny about like the way you say sorry sometimes when your parents tell you. It's like, hey, say sorry. You're like, sorry. It's like, did you mean that? It's like, yeah, I said sorry. It's like, no, let's try that again. So it's your tone. Maybe it's choosing to talk about it with just that friend and not a group of people. So sitting down one-on-one with that friend. Maybe it's, at this point, praying for them and letting them know, hey, I'm going to pray about this situation for you. Maybe it's this is one thing I find that a lot of us we're not really good at, but giving them good encouragement when you see them do something good. Like, when's the last time you just encouraged somebody for doing something good? I think it's just something we get used to, but letting them know, hey, I know you're working on that, you're doing a good job. For this one's, I put a star by it, this is me, but taking your time and getting the right words before you speak. Because you don't want to say something mean. You don't want to say something harsh. You want to say the right thing. So just taking a little bit of extra time before you do that. Consider what it looks like to show the other person love in your conversation. And the second one, what would I want? What would I want? If someone is having this tough conversation with me, what would I want? And simply going back to this idea, put yourself in their shoes. If someone was having a hard, tough conversation with you, how would you want them to speak to you? Would you want them to show you love? Would you want to show them humility? What would I want in this conversation if I was sharing it to me? And the last thing as we break up and head out, what's one thing that keeps me from speaking up or speaking out in love? So that's the question of the week. New 5th graders will have one at the end, and this is one of those things just to think about all week. Get in your car, ask your parents, a simple thing, and just work on this. Now, something new we're doing, Ryan and I posted a 1-minute video on Wednesdays on our YouTube channel, Brookwood Students. And if you just need a quick reminder, that's 1 minute of what we spoke about, it'll be there. So if you're taking this in, you're like, man, I wish I could remember. On Monday, I'm going to do 1 minute and kind of go through all of this real quick. So I want to pray for you guys. That video is on Wednesdays. What did I say? Monday. No idea why I said that. Anyway, thanks for having that conversation with me, Ryan. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the opportunity that we can come in as brothers and sisters of Christ and just grow. God. And I know you love this time. I know we need more time too, not just this 30 minutes of talking, but really going out. And I just pray for today, if we have a tough conversation or someone makes us angry, we look over this. We start thinking and praying, how would you have this conversation? Use kindness and love when we speak up. God, you're amazing. And everyone said, amen.